speaking of pain, let's talk about this. Trump caved again on tariffs. And tariff exemptions, so he exempted electronics from the tariffs. Smartphones, semiconductors, electric circuits, and TVs represent a partial de-escalation of the Trump's trade war with China. The 20 product types include in the notice that are now exempt from the 125 reciprocal tariffs account for 23% of U.S. imports from China. There were even bigger winners in Asia, however, since these exemptions apply to all countries, not only China. At a stroke, 64% of all U.S. imports from Taiwan are now exempt from the 10% reciprocal tariff, 44% of Malaysia, and almost 30% of both Vietnam and Thailand. 10% and 12% of imports from India and Korea. And Mexico will also now be exempt. And this is the thing. It's like, I don't know what to think of this. Really? Because, I mean, you could make the argument, if you really wanted to glaze the fuck out of Trump's crotch, that what this is like, because think about it like this. The entire time he was campaigning, he said he was going to do tariffs. For decades, before he even became president the first time, what did he talk about? Tariffs. Okay. And so when he's campaigning, he's saying tariff, 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 tariff. Then when he gets in, up until the point where he actually enacted the tariff, what did he do? I'm going to tariff. I'm going to tariff. Tariff, 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 tariff. Every fucking week. Tariff, 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 tariff. He's just fucking talking about it all the time. So it really blew my mind that so many people and so many companies were actually unprepared for the contingency plan, that Trump was actually mad enough to do what he did. That kind of blew my mind. Because it's like, Trump's a madman. He's got a fucking gun in his hand. He's probably going to shoot it somewhere. Why would you not at least put on a bulletproof vest? Just to be safe. And then the stock exchange just drops off the fucking face of the planet. I'm sure there were a bunch of big companies that did a bunch of stuff in the background that we didn't hear about to prepare and to shore themselves up, of course. Like, because they're not stupid, right? If they were stupid, they wouldn't be in charge of, like, multinational companies that rake in billions upon billions of dollars a year. So again, to continue to lay this out, what this could be is, it could be, when they say relief, that this is a relief for the electronics industries and all that. I kind of agree that is what the point is that because here's the thing. It's like, does it make Trump look like a bitch to back off? I don't know. My default answer would be yes. But this is Trump we're talking about. And, like, saving face is possibly one of the best things he's probably good at. Part of the corporate reaction is just that they weren't ready for him to go that hard, that fast. Not going to lie. I was even surprised that was that high of the initial rates with only, like, a week between announcements and taking effect. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I'll give you that. And to be fair, the financial markets are always fairly volatile when crazy shit like that happens, right? That's one of the reasons why America is one of the best places to do business, is because we have a stable, law and order business society where, if you and I sign a contract and I fuck you, you go tell the government and the government fucks me for you and gives you my shit. So, yeah. But, and so when unstable stuff happens, people tend to lose their goddamn minds, especially people who play the stock market. And so what this could be it could be what everybody says. He's backing down. He's looking like a bitch. He can't help it. Blah, 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 blah. This is one of the reasons why Trump the other day, I tried to find the clip and I still could not fucking find it, dude. This.
I could say, here's a wall, and I'm going to go through that wall. I'm going to go through it no matter what. And keep going, and you can't go through the wall. Sometimes you have to be able to go under the wall, around the wall, or over the wall. These guys know that better than anybody, right? You got to go around them sometimes. You're not going to go through them. So I consider, you know, I think in financial markets, because they change. Look how much it changed today. We went from, you know, pretty moderate today, but over the last few days it looked pretty glum, to, I guess they say it was the biggest day in financial history. That's a pretty big change. And I think the word would be flexible. You have to be flexible. Like he's asking the question about some companies.
So he just admitted that the markets, most likely the bond market, is what made him be flexible. And the funny thing is that this is actually a reasonable response. I hate to fucking glaze the man because it looks bad and crazy kind of thing. And I half think this is fucking
Some
half of what the plan is to make himself look crazy.
No fault of their own. They happen to be in an industry that is more affected by these things than others. You have to be able to show a little flexibility. And I'm able to do that. You have to have...
Okay, so that was the clip where he's talking about being flexible, where he admits that basically the markets are the reason that he changed his mind. And so the thing you got to remember is that he made everybody go, you know, he did the big ask, he did the huge tariffs, and then he drew it back. So this is one of those things where, yes, it is one of those things where it is laid out in the art of the deal. I'm not saying that's what's going on. But it is one possibility of how this is being played out. Like, it's entirely possible, and I think that he's probably mostly just shooting from the hip. That he put out a bunch of goals and objectives, and he's basically firing them off, you know, doing what he can to make it happen, and then whichever one kind of works out the best, he's going to pivot to that being this is the reason I did it, right? Because what was the reasons he gave? It was like taxes from getting, you know, basically collecting money from tariffs to get collecting money from tariffs to supply money to the government. The other one was to make trade more fair with the United States, with other countries. And then the other one was to bring manufacturing back to the United States. So if he gets any of those three, he can literally plant his fucking flag and declare victory. And even if he gets none of those with the world, but he gets it with China, that's going to be a big victory. He's going to just fucking plant that flag, dude. There's no doubt in my mind he's going to do that. Whether it's going to work or not is a whole nother ballgame. And so again, let's say if you were going to glaze the shit out of Trump and be like, okay, what's the plan? How is this supposedly going to work out? Because he did, I'm going to do tariffs for months and months and months while he was running, and then the entire time he's been president, tariffs. He's been doing all of that this entire time, and the market still took a dive, and basically dove off a damn cliff. One of the ways he could be playing this is to provide relief for these people for like the 90-day pause, right? It's basically like one of these things where it's like, we weren't prepared for the fallout, and so we're going to ease it back a little bit to see if we can get some breathing room. So one of the things that could, you see how it says right here, Trump does Tim Apple a solid. There might be more to this headline than just shitting on Trump, right? It might be one of those things where it's like, he might be getting concessions out of big tech for the US, not necessarily to build factories here, but something. And providing them relief in the short term so that they can get their shit together and not like fall off and not continue to fall off a cliff, right? So that would be the steel man of what Trump is doing, right? So if you want to glaze the fuck out of him, that's one of the ways. Technically, that's not even really glaze. That's just, this is a possibility that could be happening, and it's fairly pragmatic in the way it's looking at it. It's not saying, oh, he's the greatest trader ever. Oh, you know, trader, T-A-R-D-E-R. T-R-A-D-E-R. Yeah, there we go. Not traitor. And like a mastermind and making deals and all this shit. That would be super glaze, right? This is not what that is. This is basically just, if this could be what's going on. It could also be that he got threatened by the big tech companies to do something. They were going to do something really bad to make him look even worse, and that's why he pivoted on this, because he did this dead of night silent climb down on tariffs. Yeah. Yeah. It really doesn't bode well, and it does. And I have a feeling there are a lot of people who are saying that it makes him look like a bitch to do this because he essentially roached out. I don't know if that's true or not. Just because a bunch of people are saying it doesn't actually make it true, right? Because we're still talking about Trump. We still don't know what he's going to do with this. So we could have this could happen, and then Monday rolls around and something else crazy goes on with something like this, right? I just don't know. I just don't know what it's going to be, and whether it's going to be some kind of fucking masterstroke or whether he's going to like flop on the floor like a fucking fish. You know, because SpongeBob SquarePants is on. Yeah. In the end, I just don't know. I imagine it has to do with the fact that if he didn't do this, the stock market might have taken another dive, considering that big tech companies like Apple were gonna, like, it could have been really bad for them. And so that might be what it is. It could be that, you know, Tim Cook actually, you know, negotiated with Trump and was like, look, you know, just give me a little bit of relief and I'll give you something else. Maybe that's what's going on. Because, I mean, think about it like this. If the Trump administration is in negotiations with actual big tech companies, that might be why they did it in the middle of the night without any announcement or anything like that, because of all the stupid shit that people have been saying about how Trump was like saying that a bunch of billionaires made billions upon billions of dollars in the huge stock market swing. So it could be something like that, and it could just be pure stupidity. They're just stumbling around in the fucking dark, right? It could absolutely be that. It could absolutely 100% be that. And it really could, it really could be that he's just shooting from the hip. You know, there's all these different options, and it could be combinations of them. He could be shooting from the hip and betting on one of those three options that he put forward to save the day, right? If he gets huge concessions with bringing manufacturing back, win. If he gets better trade deals all around the world, but manufacturing doesn't come back, win. If he gets fucking huge amounts of like income from the tariffs themselves, fucking win, right? Or any number or combination of those, he can just declare that I won and be like, look, promise made, promise kept. The only thing he's doing good on, so far as I can see, in my opinion, is immigration. With doing the immigration stuff. Now, one of the big criticisms from a lot of people who are on the Trump side is that he's not doing it enough, right? He's not deporting enough people. And my argument to that would be, well, you don't want the government to have to deport people. But what Trump is doing is he's scaring the shit out of all of them so they'll just leave. Which is the best option, in my opinion, because that means that means the criminal aliens are the ones that are burdened with the cost of leaving the United States rather than the American taxpayer, because the American taxpayer has to pay for ICE and all the logistics of ICE and all the, you know, to put them on a plane, to pay for them to be incarcerated, to pay for them to go before a judge. All of that shit is paid for by the American taxpayer. But if he can scare the fuck out of everybody and get them to self-deport and just leave, well, that saves us a bunch of fucking money. And it does the same thing. And so therefore he only really has to go after like the actual bad people who are like super, you know, criminal and all that. And by that I mean, like, you know, the Trendayawag, whatever the fuck that gay ass name is, and the MS-13, you know, just all the really bad hombres. Get them the fuck out of here. Also possible, this is partly another measure to try to get the bond market to chill out. Yeah, as of Friday afternoon, the 10-year yield was still moving up. See, I'm not an expert on the bond market at all. So let me rephrase that. I am a complete and utter dunce when it comes to the bond market. I don't know how it fucking works at all. I barely have any understanding of it. But from what I understand is that if it gets too bad, then the United States won't be able to sell its debt. Is that right? And if we can't sell our debt, then we can't actually like spend any more money. Because if nobody wants to buy the debt because they can get it on the secondary market for cheaper and with better interest rates. I think that's how that works. I could be completely mistaken. But yeah, it's entirely possible he is doing that. And here's another side of this too. If Trump is responding to the market, yield goes up means people are selling, so we have to offer higher. Yeah, that's it. That's right. There. Yeah, there. Thank you. Appreciate that. So Hidden Sage says, essentially, if the yield goes up, it means people are selling their bonds on the secondary market. The United States cannot sell on the secondary market. They have to sell it only on the primary one. And so if we want to sell on the primary market as the United States government, they have to sell at higher interest rates, which means when you buy the bond, it has a higher interest rate on it. So after the 10 years is over, you get your money back plus however much interest it is, right? And we need the sales to continue or we are boned. Yeah. And not only that, if I'm not mistaken, I also believe that the secondary market, if people are dumping bonds like Japan did in response to Trump's tariffs, then what happens is if you flood the secondary market with bonds, the interest rate actually goes up because you're buying the bond at less money. Let's say you bought the bond for $100 and you sold it for $50. The interest rate stays the same, but because you sold it for less, you actually end up getting more interest out of it. I think that's how it works. I might be completely off base on that. And so that means it's even harder to compete against that, and so you have to raise those interest rates to get people to buy them. Otherwise, it's not economically feasible. And so you have another thing where if Trump is flexible enough for the markets, what that could mean is that yes, we have shown our pressure points, and so other countries can put pressure on those pressure points. But what happens when they do that? Right? Let's say the EU puts extreme pressure on one of these pressure points. Do you think that's going to make Americans more or less likely to like the EU and want to continue a trade war kind of scenario? I am unsure. Because we all know blue team will scream, "Oh, the EU is perfectly reasonable for doing this, and Trump is a fucking madman," and everybody on red team is going to be like, "Oh, the EU, fuck them." How is the actual normie population going to take it? That's the real big thing, right? How is it going to look when you put both teams aside? Because we all know which way they're going to swing. There's always going to be moderates on both sides that will absolutely swap, because they're on principle, obviously. But it's not only if it shows our pressure points and if people press it, it allows Trump to use that as propaganda to continue what he's doing. But if he was responding to the markets, what that means is that he can start to tailor the tariffs to respond to the market better, right? So does that make sense? Or am I reaching on that one? Because it's like one of these things where it's like, well, if he responds to the market, yes, that shows you where our pressure points are, but that also means that we can do other things with other parts of our economy where they're not so much pressure points, but they're pressure points for other people. I don't know. Because you got to remember, right? Trump, for all of his horrible fucking qualities, there's one thing that pretty much everybody agrees with. The man can turn almost any situation into a leveraged situation for himself and is able to find free money where nobody saw it and just pick it up, right? Free money. Space Force is a perfect example. We were eventually going to have a military force that's focused on outer space. The Air Force and the Navy are the primary ones that do it, mostly the Air Force. But the Air Force is meant to be an air superiority engine on our planet, not necessarily in outer space, even though it's a continuation of the sky. I don't give a fuck what Stargate says. They can fuck off. It's a great show, but as far as like how the military works, we don't even need to go there. Anyway, so the Space Force was essentially free money. It was somebody was going to have to do it, and so the fact that he was able to create this like huge media thing, like he's always going to be the man who created the Space Force. That's going to be something that's always his. And you say, oh yeah, that's hubris and all this. He's just like, yeah, but somebody was going to do it eventually. And so that's why he was able to use it to spin it into a good PR thing to make himself look better. I mean, you could say that's all like Machiavellian and oh, he shouldn't be doing that, but it's like every fucking body does this, dude. Democrats, Republicans, independents, communists, Nazis, they all fucking do this shit because you need good PR so that you can show your base, the people that support you, that you're doing what's right for them, and you're showing the normies, hey, look, I'm actually doing work here. You know, I'm getting shit done. And then you can show the other team that hates your guts. I mean, it's win-win-win all around when you know what you're doing with the PR thing, right? So yeah, Space Force was an easy PR win, exactly. Doing it a decade before it's strictly necessary, maybe the most bog standard politician move he pulled in his first. I know, right? I was like, it kind of blew me away. It was like, yeah, we definitely need a Space Force, I guess. It's right. It's just one of those weird things. Because it's just like, once he announced it, I was like, damn. And I was in the military. I was in the Navy, you know, like I love space. And, you know, it was just natural for me to fall into the same paradigm as everybody else, that the Air Force is just going to be the one that's going to take care of that until there's more of a component that requires a different strategic branch of the government to do. Hang on a second. Right? And it's not even that. It's one of those things where whoever does control space will control the planet. That's just how it works. Once we develop, especially once direct energy weapons are developed and better weapons for that can be deployed from space, there's going to be no contest. Whoever owns space owns the planet. Simple as. It doesn't matter if you have nukes if I can shoot them down, right? If I can shoot them down in orbit. Now, if you have hypersonic missiles, that's a whole nother ball game, and that's a very different thing. I have my doubts on the hypersonic missile thing. I've done a little bit of research into it, and I'm half convinced that it's literally just Russia, China, and the United States and a few other countries. Everybody's saying they have hypersonic technology, and it's all a lie, and just everybody's just playing along with it, because if we call Russia out, they call us out, and same with China and everybody else. It's like, so we're just pretending that this is a thing. Now, I know they actually do exist, but I'm talking about like how effective they are, how much they're deployed, all the other stuff. Because it is an actual technology. I'm not saying it's not. But it is one of these things where the thing that blows me away about that specifically is that the United States of America had stealth bombers and stealth fighters for like 20 years before the public knew about them. And maybe I'm wrong. You know, I could be completely, you know, huffing my own American copium here. But I find it hard to believe that fucking Russia, of all places, has any kind of technological advancement on the United States at all. Russia's absolutely bluffing. Look at the size of their budget. Adjust for how more corruption. Yeah, that's the thing. That's what gets me. It's like they have nukes, sure. They say they have hypersonic missiles, and so does our news. That doesn't make it true necessarily, or that they work as well as they say they do. And again, Hidden Sage brings up an absolutely excellent point. The size of their budget, and then how much corruption they have in their government. Like, it's astronomical. Like, you think our government is bad? If you live in a first world country, you have no idea how bad corruption gets unless you've actually been to other countries with real corruption. We have corruption, true. Our politicians are corrupt. They steal money, they defraud the government, they do all these things. Businesses do too. But in places like Russia, if you want to do business at all, you need to bribe like 50 people a day. And then let's not forget that the great and powerful leader can just come at any time and take your shit, and you have no recompense. And one of the best outcomes you can hope for is you just spend 20 years in jail rather than just putting a bullet in your head. And so this is like I said, this is one of the reasons why when people say the United States is the best place to do business, they're not wrong. We have way less regulation than the EU. And we're not as corrupt as most every other place on the fucking planet. So yeah, or not as corrupt as far as like the government and how Hidden Sage put it. And the evidence is the performance of their army in Ukraine. Now you could, okay, I agree, but you also, some of that could also be the fact that they were just using outdated equipment and they didn't maintain it properly. But that also, speaks to corruption. So it's entirely possible that the stuff that is the good military equipment is actually kept up, because Putin would be an idiot if he didn't actually make sure that those things were working properly. And I don't think Putin's an idiot. To be fair, he probably also should have made sure the rest of his stuff was maintained. And I'm surprised there weren't fucking firing squads with public executions of fucking generals and colonels and all kinds of other motherfuckers. Because I'm going to tell you what, if I was a dictator and all of my motherfuckers were lying to me about the readiness of my military, I would shoot every fucking one of them myself. I'm just saying. It's like, I wouldn't let that go. There's no way. I would make an absolute example. This is what you do when you lie to me. This is what happened. And I'm just like, and because of that corruption, like, are their nukes still in operation? Do they have, are they actually maintaining their nuclear arsenal properly so that if they need to launch their ICBMs, that they could actually make it over here? I don't know. I have no idea. If the rest of their military is an example of that, then they're shit out of luck. Like, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. The fizzles don't last forever. That crap is expensive to make a product. Oh, no. It's not about the fizzles. I'm talking about the missiles themselves. The fissionables are, they have to be replaced like every 10 years, man. Because of the half-life requirements and the safety requirements and all that, at least in the United States military. It's about every 10 years, I think. I can't get into any more detail than that, but let's just say that there are procedures and regulations for specifically that thing, right? Based on the physical requirements of the fissible material itself. And yes, you are correct. It is absolutely astronomically expensive to make. But it's a good deterrent, I'll tell you that. And the funny thing is like, think about it like this. If Ukraine hadn't given up its nukes, do you think Russia would have invaded? It's entirely possible. Do you think Ukraine would have nuked Russia? Yep. If they invaded? Yep. Because I'm going to tell you right now, dude, if a non-nuclear power tried to invade the United States of America, I guarantee you we'd nuke the fuck out of them. At least with some of the small ones, The hydrogen bombs are not nearly as bad as the normal uranium bombs, because they don't produce as much after contamination. They still produce massive amounts of radiation, and they still contaminate the area. True, but with uranium and plutonium bombs that are fission based, they leave more contaminated particulates like cesium and was it protactinium, I think, that are unstable and that take forever and that have like fairly long half-lives. So it stays around in the environment for a long period of time. And, people breathe it in, it gets on the soil, it gets in the water. So it gets in the food, it gets in the local wildlife, it gets fucking everywhere. And it will fuck everything up. So you take a small little hydrogen bomb, sure, it'll fuck a lot of shit up. But it won't leave it like irradiated for 3 decades, right? For us, is that only like 15% of Russia's missiles need to work to get mad scenario? True. But that's what we think they have, right? At least as far as like public knowledge goes. And the thing about it is, man, is like that's the thing, is that you got to take all of this with a grain of salt. Neither one of us are experts on any of this shit, so it's all just wild speculation on the internet, which is fine as long as you put that caveat on there. I'm not saying that to you, Hidden Sage. I'm just saying that in general, out into the void, just in case, right? Because it's like one of those things. It's like, I'm no expert on this. My knowledge of nuclear missiles is because I was trained in the United States Navy on a United States submarine, and I was a nuke. So I had, the basic training on how our nuclear missile things worked. And because I'm a fucking nerd, they allowed me to read all the books. And because they allowed me to read all the books, I know a lot. They have training manuals on how all of that shit works. And my nerd ass, well, I mean, when you got free time and you got a rack, I don't have any video games. What am I gonna do? I'm gonna fucking nerd the fuck out. So I'm gonna tell you right now, one of the coolest systems on there are two really cool systems that I love on submarines. Or just in general. And funnily enough, they got rid of one of them, and it's called the emergency cooling system. And basically what it is it's an emergency system that allows you to, how do I say this? That allows you to cool the reactor in an emergency with seawater. Yeah. And it was a really cool system. I really liked it, and they got fucking rid of it. On the newer plants, because you don't need it. But the other cool system is how you launch the missiles out of the submarine. Well, actually, there's two systems that are that. There's a system that allows the... Okay, I probably shouldn't say that. There is a... It's called the hovering system, and I'm sure you can guess what it is. And then the other system that I really liked that was really fucking cool is how you launch them out. They don't... The missiles do not fire off inside the submarine. Like the you know where the back of the missile ignites and flies up. It doesn't do that inside the submarine. There's something else that plops it out, and the system was really cool. I'm not gonna get into it because I don't care to put that shit on the internet, especially out of my mouth. For sure, all of the real knowledge is tied up in black box for some spy program. I'm just a history geek who deep dives. Nice, yeah, exactly. And I'm just, yeah, the main reason I'm not going to get into it too much is because a lot of it is like confidential, classified stuff. And I mean, you could probably find most of it on the internet. That's not the point. The point is that the United States government put their trust in me to not give overly much away. And so I'm just not going to do it, which is fine. That's just how I feel about it. So, but it was a really cool system. I really liked it. And I nerded the fuck out on all of it, especially on how the ICBMs deploy and how they come down to the earth. And so what I'm going to tell you is something that I learned from the History Channel. And so I'm going to repeat them instead of what I learned in the books. And what that is that our ICBMs are multiple warhead variants. And even the multiple warheads, some of them are just duds. And so you have this gigantic fucking missile in the air. And yeah, I don't need to get into that. Sorry. I started to all over the screen here. For sure, if I needed to know that bad, I'd go sign up for War Thunder forums. Yeah, exactly, right? Oh my god. Well said, sir. Well said. Okay. So, yeah. I really don't know what to think of this. Because, yeah, all of this just looks bad in the moment, but who knows what it could look like, you know, a week from now. Because, like I said, Trump is the master of turning bullshit into leverage, and he's the master of finding free money on the table that nobody else sees. Like, it's invisible, hiding with a predator cloak, and he's got some kind of weird Star Trek shit going on in his brain that just allows him to see it. I don't know what it is, but it fucking works. If I needed to know that bad, yeah. You know, I will say one of the funniest things about being a nuke was the fact that I have the accent that I do. Because it's just like, it's the old Jeff Foxworthy joke. That, do you want your brain surgeon to talk like this? Yeah, we're gonna open your skull up, and then we're gonna root around in there with a stick, and we're gonna poke some things, and then we're gonna see what happens. Right? It was basically that joke. It was pretty funny too.